Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Blockchain Ireland monthly meeting for February of 2022. My name is Paul Hearns. I'll be your moderator this morning. So we're just going to give people 30 seconds or so to come in, and then we will do our full introduction. We have quite a packed session for you this morning, so we'll keep things moving very quickly to try and accommodate as much as we can. So thanks very much for joining us. Get your coffee to hand, and we will begin in a moment. So thank you very much. Okay, so people are just coming in there at the moment, so we'll just give a minute or so just for people to arrive. Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning. This is the Blockchain Ireland monthly meeting for February of 2022. And let's hope with all the positivity going on in terms of the public health situation that next month we will actually be able to have a corporeal meeting. So more on that later. This morning, our focus is very much on NFTs, and we are joined by Mike Deegan of Mint Studios and India Murphy from CoinCub. So I am just going to do a screen share of our agenda slide this morning. So bear with me one moment. So hopefully you can all see that there. So again, we're going to be joined by Mike Deegan from Mint Studios, and Mint Studios is marketing and NFT service group, and he's going to be talking about NFTs and marketing strategy. So once you've created your NFT, what to do with it and how to integrate it into an existing marketing strategy. So India Murphy then is a senior analyst with CoinCub, and CoinCub is a crypto economy analyst group, and she's going to be talking about NFT markets, trading and exchange. So we're going to have a Q&A panel then for you to address your questions, and I'm sure there will be quite a lot of them. However, just one small change there. One of our working group leads is leaving a little bit early, so we're going to squeeze her in just before the Q&A panel. But then after the Q&A panel, we're going to have updates from the legal and regulatory group, the developer group, education and skills and innovation group as well. So we're going to round out then with just a little bit about the event week as well for 2022. So I'm going to stop my slide share now. So our first speaker then this morning, Mike Deegan, an industry veteran with LinkedIn and others, is the founder and CEO of Mint Studios. This NFT strategy and advisory helps organizations integrate NFTs into their marketing activities to make the most of this new medium. So thanks very much for joining us, and welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, for that introduction. So will I kick off and share my slides now?
Indeed, please do.
Excellent. Here we go.
Sorry, just one thing first. I'll just draw people's attention to the bottom of the screen. Hopefully everybody is fairly familiar with the platform at this stage. The Q&A button and the chat button. So Q&A, please feel free to put the questions in anytime as you go, and we will address them in the Q&A session. The chat function, please feel free to use that. If you want to add a comment that isn't a direct question, or you want to share a resource with the rest of the audience, please do use that, and we'll go from there. And just a reminder that this session is recorded and it will be added to the YouTube channel with the rest of the meetings. So sorry, Mike, please proceed.
Lovely. Cheers, Paul. Let me get the slideshow. How's that? We're okay?
That looks good.
Excellent. So I'm Mikey, as Paul said, the founder of Mint Studios. Mint Studios is a marketing agency that specializes in NFT strategies for brands and creators. So as Paul mentioned, what we do is we try and take the innovation and sometimes the chaos of the NFT world and turn that back into language and metrics that marketers and businesses today understand. How can NFTs help real traditional business practices? So we'll talk a little bit about how we do that. And then I will show some examples along the way of how brands are getting involved in NFTs. NFTs so far over the last kind of 6 to 12 months. So it's all ahead of us. So why would a brand get involved in NFTs? There's many different reasons, and I'm going to talk to a few of them now. Some people consider that, some people are saying, why would a brand do this? It's only just a fad. It might go away in the next few months. Personally, I really don't believe that. I see NFT technology in general being probably as important for brands and marketers as at least as important as, the advent of Facebook ads in 2009. See how important that's become for brands and marketers today. But realistically, probably as important as something like the advent of Shopify or Google or AWS, these kind of platform level technologies that let brands go to market in a completely different way. So I think we're going to see a lot of brands using them in different ways, and it's going to become more and more important for how brands go to market and engage with their customers. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happens. So why is it important? If there's one thing you take away from me today, it should be this tweet. There's many different things brands can use NFTs for, but this is probably the most important one over the last year or 12 months or so. And will continue to be going forward, I think. So what does this mean? Typically the old way of brands getting customers or going to market was they create a product, they deliver Facebook ads, they sell the product, or they go to Google or Twitter or whatever it may be, a retail store. There tends to always be a middleman between the brand and the consumer, right? Or the creator. This applies to musicians, artists, Instagram influencers. I'm going to use the word brand and creator quite interchangeably here because a lot of the same principles apply. So why, with that middleman there, what kind of the nature of the blockchain and what NFTs does is allow that direct relationship between the brand and the consumer. So that allows your biggest fans, your biggest customers, people who really love your brand, suddenly have a direct relationship that isn't being, gated by any of the big platforms or even in-person retail stores. It's a new relationship that brands have with their fans and with their customers. Why that's good for the brand is it opens up a whole new world of opportunities for how brands can engage with their customers and deliver value. But why it's good for the customer is it allows brands kind of have ownership, right? So it allows customers to have ownership of that brand. So if they own the brand's NFT or the creator's NFT, they feel like they're part of the organization, right? They're part of the business, they're part of the brand. So it allows people show their enthusiasm for the brand a lot more than they would have been able to do. The big platforms like Facebook, Google, etc. Not only do they take a bit of your commercial margin, they take, cost money to put ads out on Facebook. So they'll take a bit of your margin or your profit, but actually they kind of have an enthusiasm tax as well. So they kind of lose some of the brand identity and the brand experience by using these platforms or going through traditional retail channels. So this direct relationship is kind of what opens up a whole new world of opportunities. So we'll talk about those opportunities. And how exactly do brands kind of now go to market with this new direct relationship, right? So how do they do that? 3 ways so far have come to light. There's been a lot of steps forward. But I think anything I show you now is going to really, we're going to look back in 6 months and think it's ridiculous, and it will be completely different, perhaps even 6 weeks. Things are changing very quickly here. But I think that's a good thing, right? That is progress. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg looks back on his first Facebook homepage and probably laughs a little bit too. So I think some brands are really leading the way here, and I'll run through some examples now of how they are, right? So collectibles. Probably the first and most straightforward way a brand has kind of gotten into the NFT game. You can see the best basketball player in the world here, Kobe Bryant. This is his trading card, essentially. In this part of the world, we're probably more familiar with football stickers that we put in our sticker book, that kind of thing, Pokemon cards as well. This card, is worth a lot of money. It holds a lot of value. However, and if you're the owner of this card, you're probably a big Kobe Bryant fan. and you like the fact you own it, right? You get something from that. You appreciate it. So, but there is limitations to owning this card. You know, it probably lives up in your attic somewhere. Maybe your mom's thrown it out over the years. And also you're not really going to bring this card down at a dinner party and show your friends. But if you can digitize this, right, which is what the NBA have done with NBA Top Shot, it opens up a whole new world of opportunities. And remember, come back to that enthusiasm piece, right? So what the NBA have done is digitized the kind of collectible industry, and they now sell videos and 5-10 second clips of games as trading collectibles, essentially. So if you are the biggest Kobe Bryant fan in the world, you can now have the opportunity to buy, you know, a winning basket that he scored, or one of his actual real life plays in the game, rather than just a picture, right? So that's important, but it also opens up a whole new level of liquidity. So it's a much more transparent market as well. You know, if you own the playing card, you're not really sure how much it's worth. You might go on eBay and have a look. But really, if it's all digitized through the blockchain, through NFTs, there is a much more transparent market for people to buy and sell and engage with those cards. But most importantly is the element of community, right? So, you know, and coming back to that idea of enthusiasm, there's probably not many things in the world that a grown man will get as enthusiastic about as their favorite football team, right? Or their favorite sports team. So what this allows you to do is, rather than having the playing card, you know, up in your attic or keeping it somewhere safe, if you have it on in a digital life, and we live much more of our lives digitally, as we all know, so that allows you to engage with your community around the world. It might be an LA Lakers fan group that you can talk about your collectibles, or your NBA Top Shot. It might be, you know, a Discord channel with Kobe Bryant fans. You know, suddenly these communities are popping up online, right? We spend much more of our time in them. So having your collectible and your kind of talking point, you can kind of find your tribe and find people to engage with about it and trade and things like that. Why this is good for the NBA is, you can see here the Kobe Bryant one was licensed by Topps, the trading card company. So again, they lose some of both their margin to the middleman, but also they lose that customer relationship, right? So having this in NFT form kind of opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Just last weekend during the NBA All-Star game, the NBA flashed a QR code on the screen, and if you took a picture of it, you got a free NBA Top Shot NFT. Right, so that's a customer engagement that they could never have had before. That's a direct relationship with NBA and the fans that was never really possible before. So it's kind of opening up a whole new world of possibilities to encourage behaviors from your customers and your fans that we never really had in the past in the kind of analog world, right? So, and then for the consumer, they get much richer experiences from that. So they get things like owning an NBA Top Shot NFT, get you things like discounts in the NBA online store, get you access to exclusive online events, things like that, because this is now part of your identity, part of your wallet. You can show you have it, and it's kind of like a ticket to something bigger, right? So that's the collectibles. Talking of, you know, tickets to something bigger, you know, collectibles are all well and good if you're the NBA and you're Kobe Bryant. Not every brand can do that. And NFTs do tend to need to be, for a brand to do it successfully, a ticket to something bigger, right? So it needs to kind of get you into a community or part of a culture. So how does it do that? Well, and why is that important? This tweet explains it quite well. So you can see here, typically until, you know, recent years, brand and customer transactions tend to be quite one way. So, you know, brand would sell the product, consumer would buy it, give them money, the brand would give them the product, right? That's kind of how a brand delivered value to their customers, you know, and then the relationship would end there. Maybe they continue to buy the products, but it would very much the value is between buying and selling products, right? This is kind of changing with the kind of advent of communities built around brands. And the reason that this is a good thing is that the value brands can now deliver to their customers has exponentially grown if they can encourage their customers to talk to their other customers. So these kind of member-to-member interactions within the community means that it's not just a brand trying to deliver value to everyone. It's actually everyone is delivering value to everyone. So it's much more, there's like exponentially more value being delivered all under the banner of a brand. So if you are a health and wellness brand or a yoga brand or a sports team or an artist or a creator, right? If you can create a community where all your biggest fans and your biggest customers are coming and talking to each other and getting value from each other, and all happens under your brand, you know, think about how much better and much richer experience that is for your customers. And not only is it better for your customers, but you as a brand, actually, you know, that's going to do things like increase your retention rate. You're going to sell more of your products, but it's not just about getting more money extracted out of your customers. It allows you things like, it allows you kind of have a much deeper relationship with your customers. So the way, and the reason for that is because they will have ownership of that brand. If this is an NFT enabled community, it gives you your community ownership. They own the NFT, so they feel like they own part of your brand. So they are out there. You've essentially created an army of brand advocates out there telling people how great your brand is, because it's in their interest, because they own it, right? So if you have 10,000 people in your community all out there in the world telling other people and telling their friends how great your community is and how great your brand is, the price of their NFT is going to go up. So you've kind of formalized word of mouth marketing. Essentially, you've supercharged it. And not only that, in kind of when you take like a long-term commercial look at these communities, you know, 10 years ago, you know, getting a big email list was a cool thing to do. So you could send your customers lots of annoying emails. Then it kind of moved into getting a big social media following on Instagram, whatever it may be. Now emails are kind of cool again because it's first party data and what have you. But ultimately, like, really, if you can create a community, it's kind of the next generation of this, right? It's like having an email list or a big Facebook following, but supercharged. It's so much more powerful. You know, 100 engaged community members is better than 10,000 members on an email list. You get so much more back out of that, and the customer gets so much back out of you. So it's and the best way to create community naturally is using NFTs these days, and we'll get to that now. So an example of that, Adidas. Adidas created the Into the Metaverse community. You can see here, if you bought the NFT in the picture on the right, you got access to the Into the Metaverse community. You can see here, they say with the community, for the community. So community is very much a Web3 movement around brands. You know, some brands have been doing it for years, but most brands haven't. It used to be considered an annoying kind of admin cost on the marketing team. Community management essentially used to be someone would be dedicated to replying to angry Facebook comments or whatever it may be. But actually, brands are starting to see it now as a strategic asset, as we just talked about. So there's much more investment going into creating communities now. So if you buy into the Metaverse NFT, you get into the Metaverse community. So it's essentially you're ticket into the community which lives on Discord. So it's a digital community for people all around the world, 30,000 members. And what do you get? You know, you get into the community, you can talk to other like-minded people, but actually you also get things like exclusive Adidas Originals products, exclusive discounts, and I think most importantly, you actually get to vote on the next round of products in the Adidas roadmap. So they put up, you know, product ideas and say which should we vote on first, which should we drop first. The community gets to vote on which product comes next. So again, it's coming bringing that idea of ownership, right? So that's really important, and it's a relationship brands have never really had with their customers before. Now, that's all well and good if you're Adidas and you can sell 30,000 NFTs, $800 a piece. Well done to them. However, not every brand is Adidas. So, you know, this is actually one of my favorite examples of using an NFT. It's from a brand called Vacation, who sold sun cream and beach products like essentials for the beach, towels, sun cream, that kind of stuff. It was quite a high-end brand, lovely design. It all kind of looks like this. And their customer base was essentially, you know, relatively wealthy people who would go on lots of holidays and lived in places like LA, New York, the big cities, Austin, Miami, that kind of place, right? So very affluent customer base. And they leveraged that customer, but it was an e-commerce brand and they just sold sun cream and things, right? So nothing, you know, crazy or breakthrough. They leveraged that customer base to create what is essentially like the Soho House of the internet, right? So they sold 2,500 NFTs. The NFT was a ticket into the Pool Suite community. They raised $2.1 million in about 10 minutes doing it. And again, this is just a relatively normal sun cream brand, so nothing crazy. So what they've done now is created a community of very like-minded people in a similar demographic. Again, similar to like Soho House or any of these exclusive member clubs, but it is on the internet in a Discord group. And now being in that community gets you access to things like exclusive Pool Suite events, exclusive stays in different hotels that you might not be otherwise get. And a say in this, and for Pool Suite, they can now go to these people and say, what do you want us to do next? And the community will tell them, oh, we want this product, or we want that event, or whatever it may be. So now they have kind of like a collaborated, a roadmap built in collaboration, and they know that whatever they build, their community are going to buy because they've had ownership in it, they've given input into it. So this is a really good example of a relatively, normal brand or accessible brand that has created an amazing community using kind of NFT technology. So that's community. Moving on to culture. This one's a little bit harder to get right. So for any brands that want to kind of play on the whole Web3 culture, make sure you have the right people on your team, because it is difficult and it has gone wrong. So it has gone wrong for some brands, and we might touch on that briefly. So how does kind of culture marketing come into it here? Well, this is a very good example, very simple. This didn't require a team of developers or an agency building out, blockchain developers, building NFTs, that kind of stuff. Budweiser, you can see the funny little picture of the rockets here, the Budweiser can rocket ship. Someone had made that an NFT, along with some other brands that they made these little rocket ships for. Budweiser simply just bought the NFT and put it as a profile picture on Twitter. Nothing crazy or breakthrough, didn't take any development, didn't really take much money. I think they paid 15 grand or something for the NFT, which for Budweiser, not much money. But it was kind of like a nod to the Web3 movement, right? It's a nod to the culture to say they recognize it. They're kind of in with the cool kids as such, right? They have since done other NFT jobs where they have sold NFTs, but this was their first step. So this is a good way for brands to take a first step into kind of the Web3 movement and the NFT culture. And I don't mean everyone needs to go changing their profile pictures to NFTs. Budweiser did this a few months ago, so it got all the headlines and PR and press that came with it then. It's a little bit done at this stage. So there is kind of more sophisticated ways of playing into Web3 culture that don't necessarily mean selling lots of NFTs. Adidas Originals, again, is a very good example of that. So you can see here this collaboration between Adidas, and they've snuck in the Prada jacket. But arguably, the most important brand here is not Adidas or Prada, it's actually the Blue Ape. So the Blue Ape is from the Bored Ape Yacht Club. What the Bored Ape Yacht Club is an NFT native project, but Adidas have partnered with. So they started as an NFT brand. And Adidas have partnered with them as a way of stepping forward, taking their big old traditional business of Adidas and stepping forward into the digital world of NFTs and Web3. So they've partnered with NFT projects to do that, right? To really kind of play on the culture. So how they've done that is partner with, as I said, with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, arguably probably the most important consumer brand of last year, if not maybe, the last 10 years. So what the Bored Ape Yacht Club was a NFT native project. It started out as 10,000 pictures of these apes, and really just kind of exploded from there. So they launched at some point early last year, I believe, or maybe the year before. And I think they're valued at $5 billion now. The whole company is, and the Bored Ape Yacht Club have kind of gone into this media consumer empire of comic books, movies, collabs with the likes of Adidas, all sorts of gaming, all these different things, right? So there's very much a big global consumer brand now. And it's really kind of taken the NFT world by storm. It is probably the most iconic NFT project, maybe up there with CryptoPunks. So Adidas they've kind of leveraged each other here, right? So for Adidas, what they've done is they've used the biggest NFT or the coolest NFT project out there at the moment and used that to really change brand perception, brand awareness within these communities. And for Bored Ape Yacht Club, of course, they get the credibility and reach of working with a big brand like Adidas. So kind of win-win situation here. But this is a bit of a deeper partnership than we would have seen with Budweiser. Owning a Bored Ape gets you access to exclusive Adidas Bored Ape Yacht Club products, exclusive events, discounts, things like that, right? So this is a longer term partnership, more so than we would have seen with Budweiser. But realistically, you know, these things kind of feel like they have an end date. You know, they probably won't have a partnership forever. But Nike have taken a very different approach. While Adidas and Budweiser and Pillsweet, you know, they're all marketing plays as such, you know, they're to get more customers, change brand awareness, to change brand perception. What Nike have done have really kind of embedded this into their whole commercial strategy. So how they've done that is they acquired a company called Artifact, probably the most important acquisition they've made in a long time. Certainly the most important acquisition in the NFT world over the last 12 months. So what Artifact do is kind of blend the world of physical and digital. They do things like if you have a certain NFT, they will partner with that NFT project to let you sign in and claim a pair of shoes or sneakers with that NFT printed on them. So you're the only person in the world that can have that pair of sneakers. Very limited edition, very exclusive. They're essentially a fashion NFT studio that bring the physical and digital world together. And they're really, really good at it. They've done some very cool, innovative things. So Nike acquired them for lots of money. The rumors were $200 million. No one really knows for sure. But I think so Nike acquiring them, I think the significance of that for brands and how NFTs are going to be used in marketing, right? You can see here by Nike putting the Artifact logo up there with the swoosh, the Jordan brand, and Converse, right? So Nike's three biggest business lines, I now have a fourth, which is the Artifact logo. I think that's very significant in that Nike are clearly signaling to the market that this is going to be a part of their corporate strategy for a very long time. They're going all in on this. You know, this isn't just a marketing play for them. It's actually, they see digital goods and the virtual worlds and things like that being a major part of Nike's corporate strategy over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And they've shown us that very clearly by signaling this up there with their three biggest business lines, right? There's very few brands as iconic in the world as Jordan, Converse, and the Nike swoosh. So I think Nike putting that up there with them, it kind of says it all really about how they're thinking about digital goods and NFTs and gaming and kind of bringing those physical, like what, you know, Nike is a sports company, you would think that's very much a physical play, but how they're bringing the digital world into that, you know, we're all going to see it in our daily lives and in our kind of consumer habits over the next few years. So, but, you know, that's all very good. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the big things that have happened in the NFT and commercial marketing world over the last kind of 12 months. They're very much just the highlights. You know, some things do go wrong, particularly if you're playing in this culture space. It's easy to get it wrong. So one piece of advice would be, if you have a brand that's trying to get involved, trying to do NFTs, trying to get involved in some kind of Web3 movement, make sure you have the right people on the team, work with the right people, because you know, these things can go wrong. And we don't want to end up like Paul Melania here. So having the right people on the team who understand the culture is probably one of the most important things you can have moving forward. And I think that's about 10 minutes. So again, I'm Mikey. Feel free to get in touch with us. I will share a document after that from In Studios where we kind of go through in a bit more detail all the stuff I've just talked about. And you can have a read of that, you know, tell us what you think. Always free to get in touch, send me an email. I'm here to chat.
Great, thank you very much, Mike. I think we've all had our vocabulary expanded there, and not necessarily about technical things either. The Bored Ape Yacht Club, I think, is that's certainly a memorable one. So thank you very much for that. We'll move swiftly on now, and I'll ask India to come on now. So India is senior analyst with CoinCub, which is an economy analyst. So India is going to talk to us about NFT markets and trading and exchange. But maybe, India, if you just want to tell us first a little bit about CoinCub, because I'm not sure everybody's going to be familiar exactly with what a crypto economy analyst firm is. So maybe give us a little bit of background before you launch in.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a slide on the presentation about CoinCub, if you don't mind me just
Perfect.
jumping right into that.
Please proceed.
Sorry, there's a cat on the table. She knows she can cause problems. All right, so if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to jump right on in. I've got all the explanations in my presentation. Can everyone see everything?
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, great. Hello, thank you all so much for coming. My name is India Laurel Murphy, and I'm a senior analyst at CoinCub. And today I will be presenting neat financial trends, a super brief overview of what's happening in the NFT space and what the markets are like. And I think we're still in that sweet spot where NFT puns are still somewhat topical and funny, though I don't know how long that's going to last. Just for a quick overview, my presentation today will be a very short and sweet overview of a few NFT trends. I'm going to go over what CoinCub is before moving on to the play-to-earn NFT game phenomenon, the dominance of profile pic NFTs, the current land NFT craze, look at anti-NFT backlash, and our own attempt to create an ethical NFT project, the MetaCubs, with the French artists collective Plex. Okay, so to answer your question, what is CoinCub and why in the world should you listen to me on this beautiful Tuesday morning? So we're a crypto journalism platform and a crypto analysis platform that launched in April of 2021. We're based in Ireland with a very diverse international team. So we publish exchange reviews, explainers, and guides to the crypto economy. And I'd say we're best known for our quarterly global crypto ranking, where our specialists try to assess which countries are the best for crypto from an investor standpoint. So what kind of taxes are you paying? Does the government view crypto as valid? Is mining even legal? You know, like all that kind of thing. So we're also responsible for the bite-sized Bitcoin ebook, which is something you could give to your mom when she keeps asking what a blockchain is and how it works. Can confirm it did wonders for me last Christmas. And we're currently working on an NFT project called the MetaCubs, which I will talk more about at the end of this presentation. So one of the most interesting things I came across in my research on NFT markets was the very interesting marketplace of play-to-earn NFTs. So here we have a photo of Lolo Silvio and Lola Vergi. They're two shop owners from Cabanatuan City in north of Manila. They're playing a game called Axie Infinity, which is a game developed by the Vietnamese studio Sky Mavis, where players can collect, breed, battle, and trade creatures known as Axies. You can see a beast class Axie right there, the little yellow guy. They're based on axolotls, and I think they're pretty cute. So this beast class Axie, yesterday it was retailing for about 6 ETH, or around 15,700 USD. So a lot of money for the axolotl. Axie Infinity is remarkably successful in the Philippines. There is a really great journalism series that talked about how early on in the pandemic, a lot of Filipinos learned that they could generate a very solid income from playing Axie Infinity. So a little bit more about play-to-earn NFT games. They're also called GameFi. It's a major trend in developing countries, particularly ones that were hit hard by pandemic unemployment. So today I'm only going to give a very brief overview of Axie Infinity, but it's by no means the only play-to-earn game. There are hundreds of play-to-earn games out there, and others like Decentraland, which I'll mention later, and Sandbox actually have a higher market cap, but Axie Infinity is very notable due to its remarkable grassroots success. So Axie Infinity right now has around 2 million daily users, and it just passed 4 billion USD in revenue generated. It's most popular in the Philippines, Venezuela, the US, Brazil, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And according to the developer Sky Mavis, fully 25% of its players have never had a bank account before. So their Axie wallets are the first financial service they've ever been able to access. And a further 50% of players have never interacted with crypto. So Axie Infinity is popular in places that have historically devalued currency, high inflation rates, and in some cases existing gold farming economies, for example, in Venezuela. And just to clarify, gold farming is the practice of playing a massively multiplayer online game to acquire in-game currency and then selling it on eBay or another online marketplace for real world money. And it's a very common form of employment in developing countries and has been since the 90s. And one of the most interesting things about Axie Infinity is the secondary economy that has sprung up around it. So at the start of the pandemic, it was really easy to get into Axie by yourself. 3 Axies cost about 5 USD. So, the average person could buy the 3 Axies they needed to start playing and then really start grinding and getting in-game currency and cashing that out. So I think that rose to a high of about like 300 US dollars to start. And it's now about around $90 to start, because I think like the cheapest Axies you can find are 30 USD. And so organizations are really profiting off the spike in value and accessibility of Axies by offering scholarships where Axies are loaned out to new users in exchange for a cut of their profits. So, I mean, organizations as big as Binance, the crypto exchange, are offering these scholarships. So it's really becoming sort of thriving economy of its own. So moving on, one of the most common forms of NFT is the profile picture NFT. So profile picture NFTs, as the name suggests, are commonly exhibited as profile pictures on social media. Ownership of these NFTs rarely comes with an actual form of utility, and they're most often a type of status symbol and speculative commodity. So buying some of the more prestigious PFP NFTs like Bored Ape Yacht Club, as Mike mentioned, is meant to signal wealth status and membership of a savvy in-group. Like if you have a Bored Ape, you are communicating some things about yourself. So profile pic NFTs usually leverage community to create value. And most of the time, profile picture NFTs, the value comes from owning it and being able to sell it. But there are examples of them having real utility. Again, most notably in the case of Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is actually building a clubhouse in Miami, as well as throwing high profile parties in New York, like the one you can see in the middle picture. Apparently, the Strokes played and it was a pretty good party. So they know what their audience is. So the next interesting NFT trend is the land NFT. And in this slide, I'm using land NFT to refer to the sale of real plots of land and housing stock, as well as that of virtual land inside of the metaverse and environments like Decentraland. So since NFTs are essentially a way of proving property rights, it's really not a surprise that they're being used to stand in for land. So I don't know if you guys heard about CryptoLand. It recently made waves a few months ago. So the project intended to use investor money to buy a private island in Fiji and sell 60 plots of land via NFTs costing around 319 Ethereum or Ether, or around $1 million USD. I'd really recommend looking that up. They made a promotional video and it was just hallucinogenic. That fell through. So that was more on the side of speculative, some would even say, scammy use of NFTs to stand in for land. But virtual land is also a huge commodity right now, particularly land in the popular play to earn game Decentraland, which I mentioned in the play to earn slide. So for reference on just how big Decentraland is, it has a market cap of $5.8 billion with a daily trading volume of 1.3 billion. So users can buy virtual plots of land as NFTs via the native Mana cryptocurrency based off of the Ethereum token. So institutions are really embracing Decentraland as a blue chip NFT land service. So in 2021, the very famous auction house Sotheby's created a digital replica of its headquarters as a virtual gallery in Decentraland to show digital art. New York-based digital real estate developer Republic Realm paid around almost $1 million for 259 parcels of land that it wanted to turn into this huge shopping center. And big development, in November 2021, the government of Barbados announced plans to open an official diplomatic embassy in Decentraland. So it's pretty big. An actual non-speculative real estate is also up for grabs. This guy, a real estate broker named Shane Dolgoroff, is actually selling his house and an NFT on OpenSea with a minimum bid of 48 Ether, or around $117,000. And for reference, I think he bought it for like $600,000. So, the guy is selling at a loss. But it makes you wonder if he's trying to get rid of some bad property, if he really wants to get involved in the Web3 NFT trend. And, speaking of the next trend, it's very difficult to give a full portrait of NFTs without mentioning the backlash. So I've included a few indicative examples. The climate controversy, people just hate NFTs, someone referencing Marx, opposition to NFTs has been really fierce, but it's coalesced around the environmental impact early on in the NFT boom. So backlash comes from crypto evangelists and haters alike. You hear Bitcoin maximalists trashing NFTs, and you also hear people who frankly do not know what a Bitcoin is, but only know that they hate NFTs and they're awful. So there is less visible but still intense backlash over other problems in the NFT space, like rampant art theft, general IP theft, largely spurious claims of money laundering. It's very hard to money launder on a blockchain, and very reasonable accusations of wash trading, rug pulls, scams, and targeted hacks. The NFT space is very new, and it's ripe for fraud. So one of the leaders of the environmental-based backlash is the artist Memo Acton, who published a widely quoted estimate of the carbon cost of NFTs, and he really kickstarted discussions of the environmental impact of crypto art. He made a website where people could enter an NFT project and calculate like the carbon cost of the NFT. He has since taken it down because he said it was being used to target and harass people on Twitter. We cannot have nice things. But he's also since started advocating for eco-friendly NFTs. They are possible using proof-of-stake blockchains like Tezos. So NFTs that are based on proof-of-work blockchains like Ethereum have very high energy costs, but if they're based on proof-of-stake, that really goes, the energy used goes quite a bit down. So other NFT projects are trying to minimize their environmental impacts with strategies that include mainly consuming surplus energy, so they're not using extra energy, purchasing carbon offsets, and donating to environmental causes. And so finally, that brings us to CoinCub's NFT project, the MetaCubs. So when coming up with this project, we really wanted to take into account the valid criticisms of NFT projects that I just mentioned, while also using our insights into various NFT markets. So we came up with a model that is based on the Polygon blockchain. Polygon uses a proof of stake mechanism. So it uses around 7.9 times 10 to the negative fifth terawatt hours of electricity a year. And that's compared to 35 to 140 terawatt hours a year for the biggest proof of work blockchain. So pretty big difference. The MetaCubs are also based on a donation to wildlife charities that the MetaCubs community will vote to choose from. So we're involving a community. And the project is designed by Plex, a very interesting French collective responsible for many successful ad campaigns, including the pink Duracell bunny, as you can see here. So overall, you know, the NFT space has a lot of different markets to choose from, and every market has its own specific trends, but yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for coming. I have image credits here if you would like to see more about the images I used, and that's all for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much for that, India. And just a reminder that we will be providing versions of the slides for people to reference, because there's quite a lot of information in there. And I think that the point India was making there in terms of NFTs and their energy requirements is very important, because I think was it the World Wildlife Federation came a cropper on that as well.
Oh yeah.
And again, it largely seemed to be a misunderstanding of how the NFTs were generated and traded. So again, it can be easy to fall foul of these, as Mike also pointed out. Okay, so I see there are some questions in the Q&A stream there already, so thank you very much for those. And there's quite a lot going on in the chat as well, and some resources being shared. But just in a slight change to our agenda, I'm going to ask our producer Sarah to bring Fiona Delaney in. She is going to give us a quick update on the Startups Working Group, because she's a little bit tight on time just before we go to our Q&A. So Fiona.
Hi, Paul, and thanks so much, India and Mike. What excellent presentations. I'm sorry to jump into your Q&A, but hopefully it gives everybody a little time to digest. I'm the chairperson of the Blockchain Ireland Startups Group. We're largely an online community. You can find us here on LinkedIn. We create a lot of content on YouTube. This is our YouTube channel here, Blockchain Ireland Startups. We do We try to bring together Web3 business people, DLT innovators, blockchain entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. And we focus on emerging trends, early adopter business patterns, business models, that kind of thing, and discuss with a pretty cold eye what's happening in the global scene, and try and support the community here locally. We do that in a few ways virtually, as you can see some of our information sharing, the Startups Lunchbox, which are actually co-created with members of the group. So it's not just me picking out talkers, it's actually people in our group decide on a topic and then they pull the panel together and feature on it and all that kind of thing. So some really, really interesting conversations happen there. We also support real life endeavors, and we've taken, because we have a lunchbox, we support Irish food entrepreneurs, and you can see a selection of some of those that we've supported here. Our next real world event is actually taking place this afternoon in Dogpatch Labs. It's more or less sold out. A few people are dropping out, I see, so there's probably a few available spaces, 1 or 2. So we've got a max of 80 people attending downstairs in Dogpatch Labs. We're doing micro-pitching, startup speed dating. We're going to have an industry panel moderated by Chief Technologist from the IDA, Brendan Bonner. I know we'd know a lot of people here, and we will have people speaking from cyber security and crypto perspective, from a senior security architect, Sudha R from Citibank, Alejandro Gutierrez, CEO of Defactor, myself, CEO of Origin Chain, and I'm also an advisor on a really interesting real world asset project called Plastics with an NFT marketplace, Tiki, which is about personal data on the internet and how you can monetize that. And they have a very interesting back-end use of NFTs. And Token Tracks, which is a music NFT project. So you get to meet and talk to all of those people there. And the topic for that industry panel is enterprise applications for NFTs. And then following some food, we're going to talk a little bit about Irish blockchain readiness and have a little debate about that. What are the important steps? What are the gaps? And what do we need to happen next? Our group is very much an ecosystem. We are very much open innovation focused. We're bootstrapped. We're not sponsored by anybody. This event this afternoon is sponsored by Defactor. My own company sponsors the digital and virtual platforms, and Soars Digital, for example, have put together with Token Tracks the after party, which is on tonight. I think that's just rock up. So if anybody's around Grafton Street at about 7 o'clock, you're very welcome to join us. These little pictures here are the logo that we created, and then for Valentine's Day we put them up on OpenSea, so you can actually buy the Blockchain Ireland logo. It's not the greatest or best thought out brand strategy, Mike, I will have to say, but it was a lot of fun, and it was a way of onboarding the community into the idea of what it might be to use NFTs and how difficult or how easy it is to get onboarded. So that's all our news from startups, the startups side of things, and today is a really big day for NFTs at Blockchain Ireland, and it's great to be part of it. Thanks, Paul.
Great, Fiona. Thank you very much for that. And that really is an indication of just how energetic that particular group is, and how much content they generate. So, okay, well, we're just going to jump straight into our Q&A now. So I'll ask Mike and India to come back online there. And I'm just going to jump straight in because there are a number of questions there immediately. So this first one is kind of a long one, so I'll bear with me while we go through it. It said, I find these P2E games fascinating and can see blockchain games scaling massively over the next few years. The one issue I have is that fundamentally the tokenomics and in-game economies are man-made and developer managed. If I think of, say, Bitcoin, it was a pre-programmed supply curve and is somewhat of an autonomous protocol. Can these P2E games detach themselves from the centralized developer teams so they are essentially autonomous and therefore more secure or organically scalable? India, that was kind of directed in your area first, but Mike, feel free to jump in. India?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it really depends on the game. I know that some games are setting themselves up as decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, so they will have an inherently pre-programmed economy, and it just really depends on the game. And I think if people want to play to earn games that have a more inherently deflationary in-game economy, then it's really going to go up to the power of the consumer and the power of the player for them to pick what they want, because there are just quite a few options. And I think Jillian just mentioned Alien Worlds having a DAO governance. So there are options. It just depends on what players want to pick.
And just in terms of the gameplay itself, for for those of us who may never have engaged, does the gameplay matter that much? Is the gameplay quite similar across these things, or is that really secondary to the kind of economic and that sort of cultural engagement element that Mike highlighted?
It really depends. So, for example, in Axie Infinity, people can make money by grinding, playing games like raising their Axies, or they can make money by collecting the NFTs and flipping them. There's a really interesting and indicative article on Cointelegraph that I can send on where it talks, it's sort of addressed to the person who's preparing to start playing play to earn games and saying, what kind of strategy do you want to have? And actually playing the game is only one of the strategies that you could take.
Very good. Mike, do you want to come in on that one in terms of how you see those things being controlled? Sorry, you're muted there, Mike.
So yeah, I'm definitely not the expert on play to earn games. When it comes to DAOs and DAOs governments and stuff like that, DAO governance, sorry. Brands is very much where I spend a lot of my time thinking about, and we've seen some brands get into that. But to be honest, when it comes to play to earn and things like that, that's definitely India's bag, it's not mine. I'll leave that one with her.
Very good. Okay, well, we have a couple of questions here just in terms of what you mentioned, India, around how the NFTs are minted and proof of stake versus proof of work, which is a concept that should be familiar to a lot of the blockchain advocates we have there. But there's a question there. I'd be interested to hear what you think about Ethereum's transition to proof of stake, and will this address the energy debate? So can you just kind of recap what you mentioned there around proof of stake versus proof of work in this process?
Sure. So Ethereum is currently a proof of work blockchain, and it takes a massive amount of computational energy just to run. And it's been talking about switching to proof of stake for, I think, a few years now, like really quite a while, but it's supposed to be happening this year. So proof of stake, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty because I'll invariably botch something and someone technical in the audience will get a little mad at me. But when it moves to proof of stake this year, that will invariably lower the computational costs and hopefully lower the gas fees, or the amount of money you need to spend to get your transaction sent. So I don't think, to answer your question, it will fully address the energy question, but I think it'll do a lot of work on that topic. And I do think, to just answer the next question, that Ethereum moving from proof of work to proof of stake will make the network a lot more competitive on NFT markets, because invariably when people talk about Ethereum NFTs, and those are the most popular NFTs by, I think, a long run, they bring up the really high energy costs. And you see that happen a lot with backlash. Like, I think, was it Ubisoft? Someone please correct me. It might have been Ubisoft who wanted to bring in NFTs into their games, and there was just huge backlash. And with the World Wildlife Foundation, they also tried to bring in NFTs, and people just immediately shut that down because of their perceived opposition to the carbon costs.
Mike, is that something that comes up in your conversations with people as you start, or as brands start to look at how they might leverage NFTs? Is that something that comes up in the conversation, the potential energy or carbon implications? Yeah,
so I can answer that. It is the first thing they talk about, right? And I think part of my job and part of what we do at Mint Studios is to kind of lay out the options. So when you put in front of them the kind of highlight the pros and cons of Ethereum, the pros and cons of Solana, maybe other chains like the L2 chains like Polkadot and Polygon, no one even considers Ethereum now if you're a standard brand, right? And the reason for that is both the the energy that it uses and the kind of environmental damage. And then with that comes the gas fees, right? Because of all that computational power, it's very high gas fees to use Ethereum. From a customer journey perspective, right, adding a $60, $70 gas fee and a heavy environmental load onto a purchase, none of us are going to go to our favorite Shopify store and buy something for a $80 delivery fee or transaction cost, essentially, right? We just don't do that. It's just not what consumers do anymore. It's not what we're used to in the days of Amazon Prime. So kind of those things kind of go hand in hand, the gas fees along with the environmental kind of cost that comes with it. It is top of mind. And actually at Mint Studios, we mainly build on Solana because of the lower environmental cost that comes with that. So there's definitely more interest in the kind of side chains or not the non-main chains for brands for that reason. And again, as Aeneas said, like ETH 2.0 is meant to be coming, and that will change it. That will solve a lot of the problems, hopefully. But I think like anything in this game, I'll believe it when I see it. We've been talking about it for a long time now. So I think we're going to see a lot for the change. And if that doesn't happen soon, things like Solana are going to win more and more market share, right? So I think personally, for brands, Solana is the way to go, but outside of Ethereum, but again, that might change in the next few months.
Okay. Well, our next question there is from the kind of governmental point of view, and how do governments around the world receive NFT hypes? So to either of you, do you have any kind of impression of how different governments might be actually taking a stance on NFT side of things? Because we've seen some countries banning Bitcoin mining and then some reversing these things as well. And we've seen massive mobility in the cryptocurrency market in particular. So are NFTs, how are they perceived by governments, and are they perhaps subject to the same vulnerabilities in terms of how they're created or traded?
I think in my own research into just play to earn games, the Filipino government is looking into taxing them because play to earn income has become such an economic force in the Philippines that they've now become a taxable entity. And I think the trend really that I'm seeing is governments just trying to figure out how to class NFTs to tax them.
Right.
Yeah. I think from my point of view, for a brand to get into this, you want to encourage them to think long term. Do the stuff that Adidas and Nike are doing and not just do a short term, something that looks like a pure play or a quick cash grab. But it's very hard to think long term, but just with the uncertainty that governments are now kind of pushing on people at the moment. We don't know if they're going to be taxed. We don't know what the legal and IP regulations are going to be around it. And we don't know what it's going to be in 6 months or in 3 years or in 5 years. So it's more so not so much the actions they've taken, but the kind of lack of action that a lot of governments have taken. And the uncertainty that leaves makes it very difficult for CMO to make a decision now on what they want the NFT strategy to be for the next 5 or 10 years. It just kind of leaves a lot of uncertainty, a lot of open questions, and kind of just scares people into doing nothing, essentially. So it's definitely consideration. I think at some point they definitely have to take the risk and go for it. But it's I would say the uncertainty is the main thing there.
Okay. Well, there's another question here. It says, will NFT minted with Bitcoin as underlying crypto give more tangible values?
I'm not familiar with any NFTs that have been minted with Bitcoin.
I think you'd have to use some kind of layer 2 blockchain. But I think, I don't know if it'd give a more tangible value. I think it would still come down to the community value of the NFT. If there was some kind of utility or if there was a really hop in Discord, maybe, but I don't know if necessarily being minted on a layer 2 with Bitcoin as the underlying crypto. And I don't know if that would necessarily inherently make it more valuable.
Okay. Okay. Well, just we're kind of tight on time, but I'd just like to come back to a point that that you made, Mike, where you said an NFT needs to be a ticket to something bigger, just in terms of marketing approach. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you meant there, and maybe give us an example of that? Because India, we'll come to you then in terms of how that kind of develops into the market. But if you could just kind of recap on that, because I think that's probably a key point in developing people's understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's probably the most important thing to think about for a brand doing NFTs at the moment. You know, I always tell my clients they should forget about the fact that it's an NFT. Like, the NFT is not the product. The NFT is just a vehicle to do something else, right? So does a brand, what is the brand really trying to achieve? You know, are they trying to make more money? Are they trying to engage their community? Are they trying to find new customers? You know, it comes back to those standard business practices that brands have always tried to do. So the NFT is just a vehicle for doing that. Now, from a consumer point of view, you know, there will be some cases where they are buying it for the art, right? But typically for a brand, they want to be giving, it's less about the art, it's more about what the benefits or the utility of holding that NFT are. And that's what's going to drive the price long term and create a thriving, engaged community around it, right? So there isn't, you know, unless you're Adidas or something like that, you can't really sell a collectible unless you're the NBA. So it has to be extra utility that comes with owning that NFT. That has to be, otherwise, and particularly in 6 months' time, that's definitely going to be the case. So you're not going to get away with just selling an NFT for the sake of selling an NFT. So there has to be extra utility, and things like that can be, you know, simple things like exclusive products, extra discounts, things like access to exclusive events that brand holds that only NFT holders can go to. We're actually working with a cannabis brand at the moment where they will have like exclusive parties for their customers if they hold the NFTs, things like that. So it's very much about, and we're working with another brand, Spikeball. You might be familiar with it. So what we're doing there is crowdfunding. We're Spikeball exploring the idea of selling NFTs. And if for the holders of the NFT, we'll get a say in how the Spikeball documentary is made. So, you know, that's a unique piece of value that they would not be able to get any other way, right? So again, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be an NFT to do that. NFT technology seems to make the most sense to do things like that. But it's ultimately like, you should be able to deliver this value in other ways if NFTs might just be the right way to actually start the process, right? So it can be things like communities, events, products. You know, I think we probably haven't really seen the full extent of what kind of utility brands can deliver, but it would be typically around those kind of three things I talked about in the presentation.
Okay, and India, I'm coming to you on that one, because you mentioned about Decentraland and the Sotheby's virtual gallery there. So the art world and the world of high value objects are moving to use NFTs in certain instances, almost like sort of two-factor authentication or authenticity certificates in relation to these items. So is that a slight kind of change then in terms of what Mikey was talking about in marketing NFTs?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think one of the utility values of NFTs that people are getting really excited about, particularly those in the art and music industry, is the ability to make a profit on further sales. So for example, let's say you're a gallery and you sell a painting, or you're an artist and you sell someone a CD. If they sell someone else that painting, you're not going to get a cut. But the inherent utility of NFTs in the culture industry is the ability to program in the ability to get a cut of the proceeds for each resale. So I think that utility is going to be one of the reasons that NFTs just, you know, not necessarily as an interesting looking token, but just as a way of proving property rights, could be really quite successful, especially for people that are selling IP.
Very good. Okay. Well, we have one last question there that we'll come to just before we wrap the Q&A. On future regulation idea, is there any consideration being given to de-risking NFT transactions within the projects using something like an oracle, or is that an afterthought? Would anyone like to take that one?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question enough to answer that one. But feel free to send me an email and we can talk about it a bit more detail.
I just
Sure.
dropped my CoinCub the contact details in the chat. So yeah, send us on an email because I think I might need a bit more clarification for that one.
Great. Okay. Well, that's no problem. I think, as both of you highlighted, this is such a rapidly developing area that there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions. So I think that's fair enough to take that one offline. There's probably going to be a lot of conversations generated from this. But listen, thank you very much. I think we'll have to wrap our Q&A there. Thank you very much, Mike and India. Again, there's contact details in the chat line there. So please do take advantage. And as I said, we'll be doing a shareable version of the 2 slide decks for reference as well. So thank you very much for all of that. So I'll just call on our producer Sarah now to bring in our second working group lead for an update. I believe Pierce is up next from the Legal and Regulatory Group. Pierce.
Hi guys, good morning.
Great.
That was very interesting on the NFTs. Thank you very much. I'm not going to bore you with a legal treatise on NFTs. Anyway, so I chair the Legal and Regulatory Group of Blockchain Ireland, and that's been around for quite a while now. It's probably the largest of the working groups within Blockchain Ireland. It has over 25 members, and it was traditionally meeting every month. Unlike Fiona's group, we do not have a YouTube page or a YouTube platform, and probably never will. Lawyers and regulatory people tend to be a little quiet at the best of times. So anyway, we've created within the Legal and Regulatory Group what we call a review group, which I had thought would be a very small group. I thought maybe 10 people, but in fact, it's not. It's very large. And pretty much everyone who's in the Legal and Regulatory Working Group has moved over into the review group. Why? Because we're reviewing the Ireland legal status across 3 domains: smart legal contracts, digital / crypto assets, and data protection. So the review group has set up 3 mini groups. There's lots of bits and pieces here to look at these 3 domains, these 3 areas. And that took us a while to get our SHI, whatever it is, together to set out terms of reference and to agree governance and so on and so forth. But we're up and running, and we're getting stuck in. The groups are now at the stage of agreeing their individual scopes of work. What's in scope, what's out of scope. Are we looking at NFTs or not, for instance? We're talking here about an Ireland legal review. It's not replicating what the EU Commission is doing or the SEC or anybody else. It's purely Irish issues. Some of this has been done in the UK and has been done as we speak. In 2019, there was a group set up called the UK Jurisdictional Task Force, which looked at the UK legal position, primarily with reference to smart legal contracts and digital crypto assets as property. These were not regulatory lawyers. They were what you might call common law lawyers. So they weren't getting stuck into regulation, but they looked at the fundamental issues of property. What is a token? What is a coin from a legal perspective? So just a little bit on what the 3 groups are doing. Data protection is looking at Ireland's specific issues related to data protection. The digital crypto asset group is looking at, again, I keep on saying the same thing, Ireland specific issues. I mean, a lot of this is being dealt with at the moment by the Commission and its various initiatives, including the marketing crypto assets and digital services legislation and a number of other pieces of legislation. But there are specific issues from an Ireland perspective. And then finally, we have the smart legal contract group, which is probably in truth the most the group that has the most Irish specific questions, because we are one of the few common law jurisdictions left in the European Union now that the UK has left, and we're able to ask some basic questions as to the essential points or features of property and a contract, which civil law countries don't really have the scope to do because their law is very, very, very statute based, whereas ours is a bit more loosey-goosey and theoretical and judge-made. So we've got some nice questions there. This is all about Ireland Inc. This isn't some kind of vague academic exercise. This is about positioning Ireland Inc. really as a suitable forum from which and in which to base your business, whether it be a platform business or a kind of a digital / crypto asset business. So that's what this is about. And similarly in the UK, their initiative is very much UK PLC based. So we have some very nice observers on the various review groups from various institutions around the country, looking at us and observing what we're about. So there seems to be a high level of interest in what we're doing. And we hope to issue our report with 2 or 3 components in the next few months. Careful not to give a specific due date, but it is an interesting exercise exactly it's going to look like, it's hard to predetermine, but we will come up with some interesting points, which I think the powers that be will, and folks like yourselves will find interesting. So I think I will leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Great, Pierce. Thank you very much for that. So moving swiftly along, we're next going to have Frank Friel from the developer group.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so just a bit of an update. We've kind of been getting a bit of traction in the developer working group, and we're trying to figure out where do we go next. And I think the big thing we kind of came to was, we should create a community for the technologists and developers out there in Ireland. And even for those people who are interested and haven't done anything in the space, so somewhere they can go. So we have a few things we're aiming to push live very soon. We're working on a Discord server that will kind of contain everything that we're doing, and a place for people to chat, because a lot of the communication that's going on out there in the technology side of blockchain today is happening across Discord. So I think we found that as the perfect place for us to get going. The next thing is to get events going as well. We're hoping to get our regular cadence of some technology talks. So so stay tuned. We're hoping next month to start that off. And then the other part then is, we kind of looked at other communities across Europe, places like Berlin. We're trying to figure like, how do we kind of become, what's kind of missing from all of this, apart from kind of a place for people to talk, events. And it was building a project. So we're actually going to try and build something. So stay tuned on that, because it's around kind of the learning of that. We're going to share that. We're going to tell you about the project. We're going to tell you, about the learning. Use that as part of the events as well. So we're going to have a few kind of updates coming soon, and we'll use the Blockchain Ireland media, social media platforms to push those details out. But if there's anyone who's interested in joining the working group, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to have anyone new. And as I said, I think it's I think we're building up to get a nice community growing here. So thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much, Frank. And next we'll go over to Joyce O'Connor for the Education, Skills and Innovation Group. Joyce.
Thanks very much, Paul. And thanks to Mikey and India, really interesting discussion. And just to say what India is saying about the Philippines, it's really interesting to see that AidTech, an Irish company, are working with the UN Global Women's Organization with NFTs and bridging the traditional banking with untraditional banking. So there's Irish people involved in that. But I'm here to talk about our working group, the Education, Skills and Innovation Working Group. It's a very dynamic group. We've a group of people from multinationals, the SMEs, academia, research and civil society. But predominantly we've been working with the ESRI, introducing them to the blockchain ecosystem. And as a result, and thank you to the blockchain community, as a result in the EU Chase project, which looks at blockchain skills, we got the highest response rate in Europe. So thank you very much for that. So the EU Chase project is one of 3 projects that are currently that we're working with the ESRI on. These results are available, and we'll have the links up on the website. This study is really important because it gives us a base.
Oh, unfortunately, Joyce's connection seems to have gone. Joyce?
The next study, the next study, Paul, is on the blockchain skills analysis in the UK and Ireland, and that will be published in the next 2 months or so. And the third study is a Horizon study called Untangled, and that's going to be published in the next 2 months. And that's a case study of Ireland's blockchain industry. So as you can see, there's a wealth of information. And doing that, we're working to create a skills roadmap for policymakers, industry, education and training bodies, because we believe this is the key to developing a national and international blockchain hub in Ireland. Skills are the key issue, developing those skills, and as blockchain is emerging, we have the time to do that. So we feel that's a really exciting process. One of the key things that has come out of these studies is that there's a lack of understanding of blockchain. So one of the key issues we're addressing is creating awareness about blockchain. And we do that in our groups in numerous ways, creating programs, meetups, but meeting with policymakers, industries, educational training bodies to alert them to what's available and what the possibilities are ahead. So I think that's really exciting and serious, and we'll let you know more about that. And then on the 14th of March, where the 4th Blockchain International Scientific Conference is on, and Trevor Clohessy, who's a member of our working group, Dominic Allen from Trinity, and myself are presenting a paper on the descriptive analysis of blockchain DLT developments in the public sector throughout all member states of the UK and Switzerland. So we're really happy that all this information is there. It's so important that we can plan ahead, that we can create, we believe, an international and a national centre of blockchain, working with all the stakeholders involved. So thank you very much, Paul, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. And again, I think the whole idea of skills development and developing a talent pipeline is really important, because one of the things that's really emerging is how fundamental blockchain is going to be to so many planned services and developments. So that's really important. So we're coming up on time now. So I'm just going to provide some updates just in terms of our monthly meetings. Fortunately, with the public health measures being relaxed across the country, we are aiming to do at least a hybrid version of the monthly meeting for next month in March. So on the 4th Tuesday, as per our usual schedule, we'll be aiming to do a city centre meet up for our next meeting. So please do watch out for the weekly newsletters for details on that. In terms of Blockchain Ireland Week for 2022, we are going to be starting on Monday, the 30th of May, with at least a 3-day program on that. So again, we're going to distribute a form to allow people in Blockchain Ireland, anybody on the newsletter distribution list, to access that form and to make suggestions for the speakers they would like to see, the types of events they would like to see, and any input that you would have there. So again, we would be aiming for at least a hybrid event and an in-person with some digital broadcast and some digitally received speakers as well. So there's a lot going on. So please do watch out for the weekly newsletters for updates on all of that. So just to wrap up for this morning, we're just slightly over time. Thank you very much to our speakers, to Mike and to India. Thank you very much for the updates from all of our working groups. You can really see there's quite a lot of work going on there, and please do look for those working group leads on LinkedIn via the Blockchain Ireland page to get in contact and get involved, or to give some input. So again, just have a quick scan of the chat before we go, and you'll see any contact details or resources that were shared there. So thank you very much to everybody for attending. We had a big registration for today, and we had a good turnout. So it just goes to show the level of interest that's there around our topics and the engagement that we get from the community. So thank you very much to everybody, and we'll see you again at another meeting. So, and of course, thanks to our producer, Sarah, this morning, who hosted us all. So thanks very much. And again, watch out for the YouTube channel for on the ICT SkillNet page for recordings of this. So thanks very much, and we'll see you at another Blockchain Ireland meeting. Good morning.